Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Of course I did. Hello, welcome to another episode of Follow the Project. It's day 2 on site. We've been pretty busy so far, and so busy in fact that Paul missed all of the high octane stuff because he said he was going to turn up yesterday and then he didn't. So I'm sorry, we're midway through. He's shrugging. He's shrugging. Anyway, so you've missed all the high energy stuff, so falls to Paul now to get some other shots and just fudge them all together. We've had diggers going on, we've had trees being felled, we've had chainsaws in action, hedge trimmers in action, as you can see. And what is it we're trying to do on this project? Well, this is quite a large established garden on a project in Makeover in Cheshire. It's a lovely east-facing aspect, but it gets pretty much a whole day of sunshine. It's a long, generous 1930s garden which backs onto what's called South Park here in Macclesfield, which is an old Victorian park. The garden has been left to get very overgrown. You can see big herbaceous beds and borders, and they were swamped with overgrowth. We've got big rhododendrons in there, we've got ferns, we've got a couple of fruit trees at the bottom, we've got apple, and we've also got a couple of damson trees at the back there. But where you can see all the action going on in the background, there was a couple of very tired and very fatigued looking conifers which we've removed. At the bottom of the garden you can see all the action, all the work going on, hence why I'm not down there. I'm here for 2 reasons. One, to delegate, and the other one is to mug it to the camera, and I'm only good at one of those things. Can you fill the barrow up, make it look like I'm working? Not too full, not too full. Just repeat, if I move across the camera, it makes it look like I've done loads of work. So barrow number 2, here comes barrow number 4. Oh, I'm doing so much work today. We're going to make a new home for these guys. This is part of the project actually. We're going to put in a new pond. We had a pond here originally, but it was completely overgrown and defunct. By defunct, I mean it was a pond with no water. So these guys obviously used to live there, and now we're going to reinstate it, albeit a little bit smaller than the original footprint, but actually it'll be deeper and it'll provide a suitable shelter for both the toads and the frogs. We had a veritable frog orgy going on earlier on, so we managed to relocate those into the pond at the park at the back of the project. So they've all gone to a new home. We're keeping a real diligent eye open for them. I'm going to make sure they all get rehomed as effectively as possible and they can find their way back to a new home at the end of the project. We want to make sure that we don't remove that little sanctuary from them completely. So that pond is going back in with some additional running water, so we're going to have a little bit of a water feature going into the pond as well, just enough to get the acoustic element. So we've got some soil going out at the bottom of the garden, and that's going to play host to some wildflower and some shade-loving planting because it doesn't get masses of sun down in there. So we're going to keep the ferns in there. We're going to plant in amongst those with some seasonal bulbs as well, just so we've got enough foliage, but also a little bit of colour. The most important thing, we get an organic scent to the garden at the very, very bottom, which needs little in the way of maintenance, but creates its own wild habitat. Now, further up the garden, this is where things get very manicured in comparison to the bottom end. So this was a very overgrown bed. We had a mismatch of all sorts of plants in here, some of which we've managed to retain. We've dug those out, we're keeping those, and we'll get it re-establishing them around the garden. But we're going to create 2 terraces here of raised planting beds. We're going to construct those using sleepers, and then above here where the patio is, that is going to play host to a new area of raised decking. So that'll give a real vista out across this large garden. Also a great sun trap first thing in the morning. It's going to be constructed using composite decking, and we'll revisit that as that's in motion. But there's one little thing I wanted to show you in this project, which I've never come across. There's a little bit of history, and we want to retain it, and that is this. Big build-up, really anticlimactic reveal, but what is it? This is an old World War II Anderson shelter. So you can see above here, we've got about 8 inches of solid concrete. So in order to incorporate this into the design, we've got a bit of fatigue brickwork. We're going to polish this up. We're going to paint the outside brick surface. We're going to leave the concrete because I think that's a really striking aesthetic, a nice textural property to it. But above there, now we're going to create a purpose-built vegetable garden above the Anderson shelter. So we're going to try and really incorporate that into the overall design. Now, there's one thing I didn't point out, although we have access at the bottom, it involves about 250, 300 metre trek to the nearest car park across the park at the back of the project. So we can't do that every single day, especially if we're having to get muck away. So everything has to go through the client's house via wheelbarrow. Thankfully, we've been able to retain some of the material that's on site, because I'm a big believer if we can try and use the soil that's in situ. Just means a little bit of kind of clearing out now and again, but It means less going into landfill, and also means that we can reutilize what's coming out of the ground. Okay, now you saw me cutting back the hedges, so we've got a real mixture of different plants going on here. So we've got fagus over there, so that's beech. Onto our left-hand side, we've got some ligustrum, which is your privet. Very typical of properties of this age and style, because fence lines are a relatively modern invention, the way that we know a garden fence line, and in terms of panels and posts. It used to be down to planting to delineate your boundaries, and it gives you a great natural screening, gives you height, gives you privacy, gives you colour, albeit the colour will wane on the beech on the side here, because that's a deciduous plant, obviously, so eventually those leaves will disappear over the winter months. But the good thing about beech is that it retains its dead thatch, so you still get a little bit of colour and texture. But the most important thing about these hedgerows is the fact that they create a natural environment. So they play host to a whole myriad of different creatures. Feathered, shelled, you've got your mini beasts in there, spiders, bugs, bees, you name it, it's living in there. So we're going to give them a little tickle over. It's an optimum time to do this, just to neaten them up, but we're not going to be too heavy-handed because we might have a second brood of birds nesting in there. So if you can, when you're cutting your own hedges at home, try and bear with it and not give it a full horticultural haircut until the tail end of summer. That way you know that the birds have flown the nest, and you can then tidy up and push back that hedgerow before it gets too big. It's better for the plant as well, because if you want to cut back in the middle of the cutting season, plant's putting all its energy into new growth, just let it do that. And if you want to be a bit more heavy-handed, wait till it to start receding, and then you've got more chance to make sure that you can cut that right back, hard and heavy, without damaging the plant or without ruffling any feathers. Well, that's it for today's Follow the Project. Keep an eye out for our forthcoming videos. I'm off for a sit down. But seriously, check the link at the end of the video, and we'll catch you guys soon. Is that right?